Now for our roundtable with our longtime WPTV political analyst Brian Crowley. And Brian, all roads lead to and from Florida. And for the new Trump administration, that may be particularly true with all the names that have been bandied about this past week. Some with nods of approval, some with controversy. Let's talk about it. Matt Gaetz, North Florida congressman, led the effort to oust Kevin McCarthy from the speakership of the House, nominated as Attorney General, and to say that's created a firestorm. Take it away.
Well, the most interesting thing about the firestorm is it's being created among Republicans in the Senate and in the House. But, you know, they're going to get enormous pressure from President-elect Trump to appoint Matt Gaetz to the as Attorney General, which many people are shocked by.
And why, for people who don't follow politics closely?
First off, leaving some of the potential scandals that he's been involved in aside for a moment.
Alleged sexual allegations involving a minor.
But, you know, he has a law degree. Right. He very, very, very briefly practiced law. And since then, he's been in the state legislature and in Congress. He has no experience running an agency or knowing how to run an agency. He has no background running a Walgreens. I mean, so the idea that somebody with his lack of experience should be put in charge of what Donald Trump wants to be a complete change of the Department of Justice, that's fine. But put somebody in there who understands how it works. You'll have a better idea on how to fix it, dismantle it, whatever. And Matt Gaetz simply doesn't have the respect of most Republicans.
And those allegations, I note, serious. He said that they've always been politically motivated. He's never been tried or convicted of anything. Allegations, part of a House ethics report, not released at this point. He resigned from the House. That may keep that report from being released. He said it's nothing but politically motivated, and yet that's created its own debate about whether prior to any Senate hearings it should be released.
Well, you know, the members of Congress, and they have spoken publicly about this, said that at one point he was walking around on the House floor showing off pictures of women he had been with and bragging about his sexual abilities, and how these are Republicans that, who, on the air, said it publicly, were disgusted by what he was doing. The House Ethics Committee was supposed to release its report this past Friday. He resigns 2 days before the report's supposed to be released. So now they're talking about squashing the report. And in fact, the House Speaker, Mike Johnson, on Friday said that he saw no reason to release the report. If you have somebody who's in the midst of being considered to be Attorney General, it seems to me that it is not proper not to release that report, at the very least, to the Senate, where they need to review whether or not they're going to accept him.
We've got a long list, so we'll move through them. Marco Rubio, senior senator from Miami, of course, nominated for Secretary of State, met with generally thumbs up, both sides saying it's within his prerogative and is considered to be qualified. A Chinese hawk, may or may not agree with him politically, some argue, but most on the Hill seem to say he'll sail through a sex state.
And he's been on the Foreign Relations Committee, he's been on the Intelligence Committee. One Democrat I spoke to last week says that she's a very close friend of Marco Rubio's. She's a very liberal Democrat, but she thinks that he's just excellent for this job, and I think he's going to get really high points for it. The question will be, will he be able to do what he wants, or will Donald Trump keep his finger on him in such a way that Marco Rubio isn't able to accomplish the things that he thinks that needs to be accomplished?
And at a time, with his Cuban-American roots, and at a time when the Biden administration and others preceding his have been accused of being asleep at the switch as China makes inroads economically and otherwise in South America, will he influence that at all? It's part of the storyline we've been reading. Mike Waltz from North Florida, congressman, Green Beret, serves, has worked for different defense groups, national security advisor, does not need approval. He's been named. Thoughts?
Well, he seems to have the credentials. He's well respected. He's, you know, he's a strong conservative, and but he also seems to be willing to listen to all points of view and make a decision, and that's kind of what we're looking for.
Rick Scott, junior senator, of course, two-term governor here, fought for the leadership on election night, said, I'm going for the leadership, didn't work out. He got through the first ballot, but not beyond. John Thune ended up a McConnell disciple on the Hill, is the new, or will be the majority leader. Your thoughts for the former governor and now two-term senator, Rick Scott?
Well, perhaps the only one who was shocked that Rick Scott only got 13 votes among the Republicans to become Senate leader was Rick Scott. it was pretty clear early on that there was little interest in Rick Scott being Senate leader.
Why?
And well, you know, when he was in charge of their campaign apparatus a few years ago, he raised a lot of money, but it didn't do very well. And so he got a lot of criticism for that. He's tried to go toe-to-toe with Mitch McConnell, and that hasn't worked out.
McConnell's a tough operator.
And for Rick Scott, right now, it's very much being as close as he can be to Donald Trump. But if Donald Trump had a heart attack and disappeared tomorrow, he'd be looking for the next person to be close to, because that's how Rick Scott operates.
A few more names here. Laura Trump, daughter-in-law, of course, of the president-elect. And because Senator Rubio will be giving up that seat, it will be filled until a special election in 2026. Some talk, could Governor DeSantis name Laura Trump to the post? She said she'd be interested.
Well, in an age where nothing shocks me anymore, I wouldn't say I'd be shocked if she got appointed. The theory is that if Ron DeSantis decided to pick her, who has zero qualifications to be a senator, he would do it in a way to make more inroads with Donald Trump. As he looks for his chance to run 4 years from now for president, he'd much rather have Donald Trump on his side than opposing him. Whether or not that's a bridge too far for Donald Trump, I don't know, because he really doesn't like Ron DeSantis.
Final thoughts here. Florida, wow. We'll talk about being at the center of it all. Of course, the president-elect, Mar-a-Lago's home base for him, obviously, the soon-to-be 47th president. Your thoughts, Brian? Interesting times ahead, and Florida will be front and center for all of it.
Well, it's one of the things that happens when you become the third largest state. You know, 10, 15, 20 years ago, when I was a young guy, young kid in Florida, nobody cared about Florida nationally. We were too small, you know.
10 years ago, you were a young kid?
I'm only like 25.
Okay, no,
but anyway,
okay, Ponce, DeLeon, go ahead.
Yeah. But
I should talk.
You know, Florida's become an important state. Florida and Texas are the two most important states among the Republicans, and they're going to pay a lot of attention to us.
Hear an argument I was reading, as you do all the time, and a number of conservatives said, listen, you know, Barack Obama once said it. I won, the elections have consequences. When he won and became president, some variation of that theme. And some are saying he won, he has the right to name whoever he wants, get out of his way. What do you say to that critique that some have, many have?
Well, up to a point, they're absolutely right. But the reason the Founding Fathers created a Senate and the reason it requires Senate approval is they wanted a balance of power. They didn't want a king. They already had a king. They didn't want that anymore. So our founders wanted a Senate that would approve these appointments or disapprove them. So the final word does rest with the Senate, and that's the way it's supposed to be.
And briefly, you wait to see that clash, if it happens, and if they stand up to some of these nominees.
Well, we'll see. I mean, Donald Trump's in a very, very powerful position right now, and it is not the Republican Party, it's the Donald Trump Party.
All right. Brian, as always, plenty to talk about in Florida these days. Keep us busy for a while. We'll be back with more from Brian in a moment.